Dr. Kim Hanna pulled her jacket tighter as she walked through the empty corridors of the Deep Space Communication Center. The night shift was always cold and lonely, but something felt different tonight. The massive radio telescope dishes outside moved slowly across the dark sky, searching for signals from distant stars. She settled into her chair and put on her headset. The familiar hum of electronics filled her ears as she began her routine checks. Static crackled and popped through the speakers, the usual noise of empty space. But then something changed. Through the static came a voice, faint but unmistakably human. Hannah's heart jumped as she quickly adjusted the controls, trying to clear the signal. Can anyone hear this? Colony ship New Dawn, calling Earth. The voice was breaking up, cutting in and out. 30 years since we left. They've consumed everything in their path. Hannah's hand shook as she hit the record button. The New Dawn was legendary among space workers. It had been Earth's first attempt at interstellar colonization, launched when she was just a child. The ship had carried 10,000 volunteers to start a new life around Proxima Centauri. Then one day, all communication stopped. Search missions found nothing. The ship had simply vanished. Earth must know, the voice continued, clearer now. What's coming is worse than any war we could imagine. They don't just destroy worlds. They make them disappear completely, as if they never existed at all. The transmission cut to static again, then returned briefly. We're the last ones, hidden. But they'll find us soon. Prepare yourselves. Fight or hide, but don't let them catch you unprepared like we were. Then silence. Hannah immediately called her supervisor, Dr. Park Jin-ho. Despite the late hour, he arrived within 30 minutes, his gray hair messy from sleep, but his eyes alert. He listened to the recording 3 times without speaking. The signal definitely comes from Proxima Centauri, he said finally, studying the data on his screen. But there's something else here. Some kind of secondary transmission buried in the main signal. It looks like sensor data, star charts. And what might be tracking information for something heading toward our solar system. Word spread quickly through the scientific community, then to government officials. Within 3 days, the recording reached Earth's Defense Council. The organization responsible for humanity's protection against threats from space, Admiral Lee Min-ho, stood in the council chamber, facing the most powerful leaders on Earth. He was a tall man with serious eyes, commander of humanity's small but growing space fleet. Behind him on the large screen played the mysterious transmission from the New Dawn. Our scientists have confirmed the signal as authentic, Min-ho reported. Voice analysis matches Captain Sarah Morrison, who commanded the New Dawn. The star. Charts embedded in the transmission show something large moving through space, heading in our general direction. The council members whispered among themselves. Earth had only recently developed faster-than-light travel, and their space fleet consisted of just 4 ships. The Defiance, Min-ho's flagship, along with 3 smaller escort vessels, represented humanity's entire deep space military capability. What exactly are we dealing with, Admiral? Asked President Kim Tae-hoon, Earth's elected leader. Min-ho looked grim. Unknown, sir? The transmission mentioned something that doesn't just destroy civilizations but makes them disappear entirely. The survivors from the New Dawn claim to be in hiding, but they expect to be found soon. Could this be some kind of trick? Suggested Defense Minister Wang Li. Maybe aliens trying to scare us? It's possible, Min-ho admitted. But the voice patterns match our records perfectly. Either Captain Morrison is alive and sending us a warning, or someone has technology advanced enough to perfectly fake a human voice and knows details about our lost colony ship that were never made public. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. If the transmission was real, then something terrible had happened to the New Dawn colonists. Worse, that same something was now heading toward Earth. Sir, Min-ho continued, I recommend we send a reconnaissance mission to Proxima Centauri. If there are survivors from the New Dawn, we can't abandon them. And if there really is some kind of threat approaching Earth, we need to know what we're facing. The debate lasted hours. Some council members argued it was too dangerous to send. their only deep space fleet on what might be a suicide mission. Others insisted they couldn't ignore a distress call from their own people. Finally, President Kim stood up. The decision is made. Admiral Minho, prepare your fleet for departure. Whatever happened to the New Dawn, we won't abandon our people. And if something is coming for Earth, we need to know about it. As the council dispersed, Minho felt the weight of responsibility settle on his shoulders. His 4 ships and their crews would be humanity's only hope of discovering the truth. Whatever they found at Proxima Centauri, he hoped they would survive long enough to warn Earth. The next morning, preparation began for humanity's most dangerous mission yet, the journey. To Proxima Centauri took 3 months through hyperspace. Admiral Lee Minho spent most of that time studying the strange transmission and preparing his crew for whatever they might find. His flagship, the Defiance, led the small fleet of 4 ships into the unknown. When they finally dropped out of hyperspace, near the red dwarf star, the sight that greeted them was unlike anything they had expected. The Proxima Centauri system was completely silent. No radio signals filled the space around them. No heat signatures from ships or stations appeared on their sensors. It was as if the entire system was dead. "Hey, this is wrong," muttered Captain Park. Junho from the escort ship Thunder. "Even a dead system should have some debris, some traces of what happened here." But there was something. Orbiting close to the red star was a massive structure that definitely was not human-made. It was enormous, easily the size of a small moon, and its design was completely alien. Strange curves and angles formed patterns that hurt to look at directly. The metal, if it was metal, seemed to shift colors in the starlight. Lieutenant Cho. Suki, the young communications officer on the Defiance, ran scan after scan on the mysterious object. "Sir," she reported to Admiral Minho, "I'm detecting faint life signs inside that structure. The readings show thousands of individual signatures, but they're all very weak. Like they're sleeping, or in some kind of suspended state." Minho studied the data on his screen. The structure showed no weapons, no shields, no signs of being a warship. But it was clearly not natural. Someone, or something, had built it. "Open a communication channel," he ordered. All frequencies. They tried every method they knew to make contact with whoever might be inside the alien structure, but received no response. The thing just floated silently in space, giving off its strange life readings. After hours of failed attempts at communication, Minho made the decision that would change everything. "We're going aboard. Prepare a boarding party." "Sir, that could be extremely dangerous," warned his second-in-command, Commander Kim Dae-ho. "We have no idea what's inside that thing." "Those life signs could include survivors from the New Dawn," Minho replied firmly. "I won't leave without investigating." The boarding party consisted of 12 people, including Minho himself, 2 scientists, and 9 Marines. They approached the alien structure in a small shuttle, looking for some kind of entrance. As they got closer, a section of the hull simply opened, revealing a docking bay that seemed designed to accommodate their shuttle inside. The air was breathable, but strange, carrying scents that no human had ever smelled before. The corridors were vast and curved, clearly built for beings much larger than humans. Soft lights appeared as they walked, guiding them deeper into the structure. What they found was beyond imagination. The alien ship was like a massive ark filled with thousands upon thousands of chambers. Each chamber contained what looked like sleeping pods, and most of the pods were occupied. Through the transparent covers they could see beings from dozens of different species, all suspended in some kind of deep sleep. "My God," whispered Dr. Lee Sujin, one of the scientists. "It's like a zoo, but for entire species." They moved deeper into the ship, following their scanners toward the human life. Signs. Finally, in a section that seemed newer than the rest, they found them. Hundreds of stasis pods containing unmistakably human forms. The survivors of the New Dawn. Minho approached the control panel near the pods, trying to understand the alien. Symbols. Suddenly, the nearest pod began to open with a soft hissing sound. Inside was a middle-aged woman with graying hair, wearing the uniform of the New Dawn colony ship. Her eyes opened slowly, confused and frightened. When she saw Minho's uniform, tears began to flow down her cheeks. "I'm Dr. Young Mina," she whispered, her voice weak from long sleep. "Chief Medical Officer of the New Dawn, you shouldn't have come here. You've doomed yourselves just like we did." "We received your distress signal," Minho explained, helping her sit up. "We came to rescue you." Mina laughed bitterly. "Rescue? There's no rescue from what's coming. The beings who put us here, they're not our captors. They're trying to save us. Save what little they can before everything else is destroyed." Before Minho could ask what she meant, shadows began moving in the corridors around them. The beings who emerged were unlike anything humans had ever imagined. They were tall, maybe 3 meters high, and seemed to be made of light and shadow mixed together. Their forms constantly shifted and shimmered, as if they existed in multiple dimensions at once. The lead creature approached them, and somehow they could understand its communication, though it didn't speak with words. Instead, complex musical tones filled the air, and a translation device on the wall began converting the sounds into human language. "Welcome, children of Earth," the being said through the device. "I am what you might call a gardener. We preserve the last flowers of each garden before the harvest arrives to claim everything else." "What harvest?" Minho demanded. "What happened to our people?" The gardener's form flickered with what might have been sadness. "Your species was chosen for salvation. We could save only a few from each world we encounter. The rest..." The creature paused. "The rest cease to exist entirely when the harvest comes." The gardener led Admiral Minho and his team deeper into the massive ark. Through corridors that seemed to stretch forever, Dr. Yang Mina walked beside them, still unsteady from her long sleep but determined to help them understand the terrible truth she had learned. They entered a vast central chamber. It's larger than any building on Earth. The walls curved up and disappeared into darkness above them. What filled the space was far more frightening than its size. Floating in the air were thousands of holographic displays, each one showing a different part of the galaxy. "Observe," the lead gardener said, its musical voice echoing through the chamber. "This is the truth we have witnessed across countless worlds and countless years." The holographic displays began to move and change. Minho watched in horror as galaxy after galaxy appeared before them. The first showed a spiral galaxy much like their own Milky Way, filled with bright stars and swirling clouds of cosmic dust. It looked alive and beautiful. Then the image changed to show the same galaxy, but something was wrong. Large sections were completely black, empty of any stars or matter. It was as if someone had taken an eraser to parts of the universe itself. The next image showed the galaxy even later. More emptiness, more void where stars and worlds had once existed. Finally, the last image showed nothing but a few scattered points of light in an ocean of absolute darkness. "This pattern repeats everywhere," the gardener explained. "We have seen it happen to thousands of galaxies across the cosmos." The harvest does not simply destroy civilizations or planets. It removes them from existence entirely, as if they had never been created at all. Dr. Li Sujin, one of the scientists from Minho's team, stared at the displays in disbelief. "That's impossible. Matter and energy cannot simply disappear. It violates every law of physics we know." The gardener's form shimmered with what might have been sadness. "Your laws of physics apply only to your small understanding of reality. The harvest operates on levels beyond your current knowledge. When it comes, things do not die or break apart. They simply stop existing, leaving no trace they were ever there." More holographic displays appeared, showing the progress of this mysterious harvest across space and time. It moved in great waves, consuming entire regions of galaxies before moving on to the next. The pattern was always the same. First, the outer edges of a galaxy would begin to fade. Then the emptiness would spread inward like a disease. Dr. Yang Mina stepped forward, her voice weak but urgent. "They showed me and the other survivors from the New Dawn these same images. We watched our colony world disappear right before our eyes. One moment it was there, the next it was gone. Not destroyed, not broken apart, just not there anymore." She pointed to one of the displays showing their own galaxy, the Milky Way. Dark patches were already visible at the outer edges, slowly spreading inward toward the center where Earth was located. The harvest has already begun here, she continued. Entire star systems at the galaxy's edge have already been erased. The wave is moving inward, and according to their calculations, it will reach our solar system in about 6 months. Admiral Minho felt his blood turn cold. How long have you known about this? We are the last of our kind, the gardener replied. We have fled across the universe for millions of years, always staying just ahead of the harvest. We learned long ago that fighting is useless. The only hope is to preserve what we can before everything else is lost forever. The alien being gestured toward the countless sleeping chambers they had seen throughout the ship. We call ourselves gardeners because we collect the last flowers from each garden before the winter comes. From every world, every civilization that faces the harvest, we save a few individuals. Artists, scientists, leaders, anyone who carries the best of their species. Lieutenant Chosuke, who had been listening in shocked silence, finally spoke up. How many? How many do you usually save from each world? A few thousand at most, the gardener answered. It is all our ships can carry, and we must move quickly. Before the harvest arrives, Dr. Yangmina nodded sadly. They offered to take 10,000 humans from Earth, our best and brightest, they said. Enough to preserve human culture and knowledge, but small enough to transport safely. Admiral Minho's jaw tightened with anger. And what about the other 8 billion people on Earth? What about all the children, families, ordinary people who deserve to live just as much as any scientist or artist? The gardener's musical tones became more sorrowful. They will cease to exist when the harvest comes. This is the way it has always been. We offer salvation to your species. A few thousand will survive to remember the billions who cannot be saved. No, Minho said firmly. I won't abandon my people. If this harvest can be fought, then we'll fight it. If it can be stopped, we'll find a way to stop it. The gardener's form flickered with what seemed like confusion. No species has ever successfully resisted the harvest. Those who try to fight are erased first. Acceptance of loss is the only path to any survival at all. Minho looked around at his crew, seeing the same determination in their eyes that he felt in his heart. Hey, then you've obviously never encountered humans before. We don't accept defeat easily. When Admiral Minho's fleet returned to Earth with news of the harvest, the planet's reaction was unlike anything in human history. Within hours of the emergency broadcast, President Kim Tae-yoon stood before the world's leaders in an unprecedented global assembly. We face something that wants to erase us from existence, the president announced, his voice steady despite the terrible news. But we are not going quietly. This is not a call for evacuation. This is a call for the greatest fight humanity has ever undertaken. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Every nation on Earth, even those that had been enemies for generations, put aside their differences. Resources that had been used for war against each other were now directed toward a single purpose, defying extinction. Dr. Park Jin-ho, the scientist, who had first received the distress signal, found himself leading Earth's scientific response. In a crowded laboratory filled with the world's brightest minds, he outlined humanity's desperate plan. The gardeners told us this harvest erases things from existence, he explained to the assembled researchers. But what if we make ourselves impossible to erase? What if we fill the galaxy with so much proof of our existence that we cannot be forgotten? The plan was both simple and massive in scope. Humanity would broadcast everything about themselves into space. Every story, every song, every piece of art, every memory that made them human would be transmitted across the galaxy on every possible frequency. Construction began. Immediately on transmission arrays larger than anything ever built. The arrays rose from every continent, massive structures reaching toward the sky like metal forests. But these were not weapons in any traditional sense. They were humanity's voice. Preparing to shout into the darkness, the call went out to every human on Earth. Contribute something that represents who you are. The response was overwhelming. Children in schools drew pictures of their families and pets, which were then digitized and added to the transmission. Elderly people recorded stories of their lives, their loves, their losses. Musicians composed new symphonies dedicated to human courage and stubbornness. Farmers shared songs they sang while working in their fields. Scientists contributed their discoveries and theories. Writers offered their poems and stories. Even criminals in prison were asked to contribute something, because every human voice mattered in this final chorus. As the transmission arrays came online, Earth began broadcasting, constantly. Radio waves, quantum signals, and every other form of communication humans had developed carried their collective voice into space. The planet became like a lighthouse in the cosmic darkness, but instead of light, it broadcast the essence of humanity itself. Meanwhile, space-based telescopes watched the edge of the solar system with growing horror. The harvest was approaching exactly as the gardeners had predicted. Distant Pluto, the outermost planet, simply vanished one day. Not destroyed, not broken apart, but completely gone, as if it had never existed at all. The disappearance sent shock, waves through Earth's scientific community, but it also strengthened their resolve. The broadcasts increased in intensity. With more people than ever recording their thoughts and memories, the gardeners, still orbiting Earth in their massive arc, watched humanity's response with a mixture of fascination and fear. Communicated with Earth scientists through the translation devices. "You do not understand," the alien being warned. "The harvest is drawn to civilizations that struggle against it. Your broadcasts are like a beacon calling it directly to your world. You are hastening your own erasure." But humanity's response surprised even themselves. Lieutenant Chosuke, who had been promoted to communications commander after the discovery at Proxima Centauri, coordinated the global broadcast network from a command center that never slept. "Let it come," she said, when the gardener's warning was relayed to her. "If this thing feeds on fear and despair, then it's going to starve when it gets to us. We're not broadcasting fear, we're broadcasting defiance." The broadcast continued, to grow stronger as more of the outer solar system disappeared. Neptune vanished next, followed by Uranus. Each disappearance only made humanity broadcast louder and with more determination. Children who had contributed drawings made new ones. Musicians composed even grander symphonies. Writers crafted epic poems about humanity's refusal to surrender. The elderly shared not just their own memories, but the memories passed down from their grandparents and great-grandparents. The gardeners had never encountered anything like it. In their millions of years of fleeing the harvest, they had seen countless civilizations face extinction. Some had fought with weapons, others had tried to hide. Many had simply given up in despair. But none had ever responded by celebrating their own existence so loudly and defiantly. "They sing in the face of extinction," one gardener observed, its musical tones filled with wonder. "They do not weep or beg or rage against their fate. They sing." As Jupiter began to flicker and fade at the edge of perception, Earth's broadcasts reached their peak intensity. Every human voice, living and dead through recordings, joined in a chorus that filled the galaxy. It was not a song of mourning or fear, but a song of determination. "We are here," the collective voice of humanity seemed to say. "We existed, we loved, we dreamed, we created, and we will not be forgotten, no matter what comes for us." The gardeners watched in amazement as something unprecedented began to happen. The harvest, which had never slowed or stopped in all their experience, began to hesitate at the edge of Earth's solar system. The harvest moved closer to Earth with terrifying speed. After consuming the outer planets, it began attacking the inner solar system with ruthless efficiency. Mars, the red planet that humans had dreamed of colonizing for centuries, simply flickered like a dying light bulb and then vanished completely. One moment it was there, the next moment there was nothing but empty space where it had orbited for billions of years. The asteroid belt, that ring of rocky debris between Mars and Jupiter, disappeared next. Thousands of chunks of rock and metal that had existed since the formation of the solar system were erased, as if they had never been created at all. Space telescopes that had been watching the belt suddenly found themselves looking at nothing but empty darkness. On Earth, the response was not panic or despair, but an even greater determination to be heard. Every transmission array on the planet, worked at maximum power, flooding space with human voices, music, art, and memories. The broadcasts had become so intense that they were drowning out radio signals from distant stars. Dr. Kim Hanna had first detected the distress signal from. The New Dawn now coordinated the global broadcast effort from a command center built on the moon. The lunar base allowed for even more powerful transmissions without Earth's atmosphere interfering with the signals. Increase power to all arrays, she ordered her team as they watched the harvest approach Earth itself. Every human voice needs to be heard. Every story needs to be told. The phenomenon that had consumed entire galaxies finally reached Earth's orbit. For a terrifying moment, the planet itself began to fade. The blue and green world that had given birth to humanity started to become transparent, like a ghost of itself. People on Earth's surface looked up at stars they had never seen before, as visible through their own atmosphere as their world began to disappear. But humanity's response was not to fall silent in fear. Instead, the broadcasts became even louder and more defiant. Children sang nursery rhymes into microphones. Teenagers shouted messages of hope to friends in other countries. Adults shared their deepest memories and dreams. The elderly told stories of generations past, keeping alive the voices of people who had died long ago. Then something happened that had never occurred in the millions of years since the harvest began consuming the universe. The erasure effect stuttered, flickered like a broken machine, unable to complete its work. Earth stopped fading and began to become solid again. The harvest itself seemed confused. Through the cosmic background radiation, sensors detected something like uncertainty rippling through the force that had destroyed countless worlds. For the first time in its existence, the harvest encountered something it could not process. Dr. Hanna stared at her instruments in amazement. "It's stopping," she whispered into her communicator, barely believing what she was seeing. "The harvest is actually stopping." From the Gardner Ark still orbiting Earth, the alien beings watched in shock as their ancient enemy began to retreat. The lead Gardner's musical tones filled with wonder as it communicated with Earth scientists. "Impossible," it said through the translation device. "In all our years of flight, across all the galaxies we have seen consumed, nothing has ever made the harvest pause." "How are you doing this?" Dr. Hanna realized the answer even as she spoke it. "It can't erase us because we won't let ourselves be forgotten. The harvest feeds on civilizations that die quietly, that fade into despair and silence. But we're not being quiet. We're being as loud as possible." The gardener's form brightened with sudden understanding. "You have created a paradox that the harvest cannot resolve. It erases things by removing them from memory, by making the universe forget they ever existed. But you refuse to be forgotten. Even facing extinction, you insist on being remembered." As they watched, the harvest continued to retreat, moving back toward the outer solar system. But it was not the same force that had approached Earth. Something had changed in its fundamental nature. It moved more slowly, less certainly, as if it had been damaged by its encounter with humanity's defiance. Admiral Minho, back on Earth after his mission to Proxima Centauri, watched the retreat from the command center. "We may not have destroyed it," he said with a grim smile, "but we sure as hell gave it something to think about." The gardeners, who had spent eons fleeing from world to world, made a decision that surprised even themselves. Their leader announced, "It through the translation system. We will not run anymore. For the first time since our own world was consumed, we have seen the harvest stopped. We will stay here and learn from you. We will fight." In the weeks and months that followed, Earth became something it had never been before, the center of galactic resistance. The gardeners began awakening other species from their stasis pods, teaching them what humanity had discovered. Not all species could master the art of defiant noise that had saved Earth, but many found their own ways to resist being forgotten. Alien artists created works celebrating the uniqueness of their lost civilizations. Alien scientists shared knowledge that had been preserved for millions of years. Alien storytellers told tales of worlds that no longer existed, but would now be remembered forever. The galaxy began to change. Where once there had been only the advance of erasure and the flight of refugees. Now there was something new: resistance. Other species learned humanity's most important lesson, that the greatest victory is not always winning, but simply refusing to surrender quietly. The harvest still existed, still threatened worlds at the galaxy's edge. But it had learned something. Too. Some things could not be erased, no matter how powerful the force trying to erase them. Some voices were too loud, too insistent, too determined to be silenced. Humanity had discovered the universe's greatest secret: being forgotten is only possible if you stop insisting on being remembered.